In this lecture, we're going to be creating the fourth application within our course. Now, in the previous lecture, we created a random plist generator. Now, what this basically does was was a property list which contained information. And we're going to be doing the same to what we created in our previous lecture. We're going to be creating a property list and filling it up with jokes. And then we're going to create a button which will randomly select one of those jokes and display it within our label to create our simple joke generation application. So as you can see here in this text file, I have 4 jokes already that we can implement into our project. So before we can get down to that, we're going to simply, in our interface builder, place in our button, space it out, and I'll simply name it Tell Me a Joke. And then we're going to add in our label. And we're going to space that out. And then we're going to center it. Okay, so we've got both of them set up. We're going to bring up our assistant editor. And then make sure we're selected within our viewcontroller.h. And we start with our label by adding the outlet. Simply name it label. And then add in our action by simply name it joke button. There we go. And make sure that's selected as an action in our connection and connect that up into our project. Okay, so we've got that set up. We're going to close our standard editor and bring up our normal editor here. And then we're going to go to our project here. We're going to right click it and go to new file. We're going to make sure we're selected within iOS and then resource and then select a property list and next. Now simply name this joke list and add that in to our project. So that's created our blank plist within our project. We then need to click on our root, click on our plus symbol, which will create a new line. And I simply name this jokes. And we need to change this from a string to an array. And drop it down. And by creating it to an array, we can click the little plus symbol and then create numerous amounts of strings. Now within each string is then going to contain one of our jokes. So I'm just going to simply copy and paste it in. And then go on to add a second one in. And then every time our random generator picks one of these strings, it will display our joke within our label. So copy it in there, our new line. And then finally our fourth one here. So we've got 4 all together. I'm not going to tell you what those jokes are. We'll wait till we generate it in our simulator. So we're pretty fun to see at the end. But now we've got those jokes implemented within the 4 strings within our array of our info or our property list. Okay, so we're going to jump straight into our viewcontroller.m where we can now begin to code it. So I'll space this out so you can clearly see what will be going on. So just like how we created it in our previous lecture on creating random plist generators, it's going to be the same thing. The only difference is the referencing of what property list within the code. So we start by creating our ns string, which we call it file contents, nice and simple. Then space equal space our 2 brackets of our ns bundle, space main bundle, as we need to allocate our plist. So we do path of resource, and in the first highlighted section will be the name of our plist, which we called it joke list. And then the of type, it is a plist. There we go. We then need to then get our ns dictionary so we can read it, space asterisk, and I simply call it word dic, short for word dictionary, space equal space bracket bracket ns dictionary. We need to allocate it, space init with contents of file, and then here we do the file of contents there a bracket, and then we need to create an ns multiple array. Can't find it there. There we go. And that's going to be simply named items, space, it's going to equal our bracket, our word dic, our word dictionary, and then value for key is going to be the name of our array within our joke list, which happens to be called simply jokes. So back into our viewcontroller.m, where we then type in jokes, make sure that it is case sensitive and have a bracket and a semicolon. We then need to create our int, which we're going to call it random joke. And it's going to equal our simple arc for random function, which is then going to randomly pick an item from the count of our jokes array list. And then once it's picked one of them randomly, we're going to create our NS string, and then we can simply name it word, because we need to place that randomly picked one in this word string. So equal space bracket our items object at index, there we go, and then we need to simply name it back to our random joke, and then a bracket and a semicolon, and then we need to get it to self dot label to set the text as our NS string, as we need to allocate it first to equal our init with format, which is going to be at symbol, 2 quotation marks, and then a comma, and then the name of our string, which happens to be word, with the 2 brackets and a semicolon. And to place that word within our string, we do the percentage sign and the at symbol. There we go. Oh, making sure that is a semicolon on the end. There we go. Okay, we completed it up. So it's going to randomly pick one of our jokes. So if we quickly test it out. Now, just before we complete this application, there already is one problem that's going to occur. Now, this label is pretty small. So when we press tell me a joke, it only fits in one line of the joke. So if we head back to our main.storyboard, as we now need to configure our label. So if we space this down, and then we can need to change it then to being able to display more than one line. So we're going to stick with 4, and then we're going to change the auto shrink. So we're going to select it on the auto shrink and set minimum font size, as this then shrinks our font down. As you can see, it's already set at 17. The minimum our font size can go is to 9. So if there's more text that cannot be displayed in our label, it will decrease the font size. And by decreasing the font size, meaning it can fit it in with the label. And the smallest we'll allow it to go down to is 9, well, basically the size 9. Which should be, as standard, should be enough to display these jokes in, as we've already got it set out to display on 4 lines. So here we go. We're going to tell me a joke. It says, why does Humpty Dumpty love autumn? Because Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Our second one, they may repeat as there's only 4. What happens to a frog's car when it breaks down? It gets towed away. See if we can generate the other 2. Why was 6 scared of 7? Because 7 ain't 9. That's a classic joke there. And there's one more left. Let's see if we can get to it. Instead of the John, I call my toilet the gym. That way it sounds better when I go to the gym first thing every morning. That's a pretty good joke. So yeah, you can see there's only 4 there, so they are going to repeat. The more jokes you add, the less of the chance they are going to repeat after themselves. But there you go. It's simply generating a random piece of information from our plist, which our plist happens to contain loads of jokes. So you can take this one step further by adding some fancy images, which you can learn about further on in the course. Even add the ability to share these jokes to your friends or families over social networks, or even message them directly from the application. So all the possibilities are endless, and this is a simple basis of a simple joke generation application.